Hey there guys, hi, it's Seda. Janice Hurley asked me if I would share my story with you guys, and I agreed to do that, so here we go. I hope I don't take up too much of your time, but I think it's really important to give you a background of how I even made it to the Legends Championship, which will always be one of the highlights of my life. So let me begin by telling you what actually happened back in October of 2012. I was diagnosed with pancreatic disease, ultimately pancreatic cancer. Give you a little bit of a background about what I used to do. I ran a marathon, I've done some biathlons, your typical 5K and 10Ks. I actually have a background in fitness, up and off ice conditioning coach for Division I teams in hockey. I've had the blessing and honor of training many talented athletes from a very young age to adults. With that background, fitness has always been top of my list. But in October, I was diagnosed with pancreatic disease. I was put in a position to where I didn't really have a choice but to get a Whipple surgery, and you can look that all up with the technical side, the medical side of that. But let me tell you a little bit about what that was. An emergency surgery 2 weeks thereafter. I did find one of the best surgeons in the country, and I was very blessed to find him. During the time, my late husband was diagnosed with hepatitis C. Before I was actually diagnosed, he needed to go and get treatment, and that was scheduled at the time of October-November timeframe of 2012. But due to my diagnosis, we had to hold off his treatment until, we thought at the time, in January of 2013. I'd gone into Georgetown University Medical Center and had the Whipple surgery done. A very intense surgery, to say the least. Dr. Johnson actually removed the head of my pancreas, a small bile duct, gallbladder, some small intestines, large intestines, and there he found pancreatic cancer in the lymph nodes, which he did remove at the time. The tumor that I had was nowhere near the actual disease. The tumor actually was located through the pancreatic wall, and that's why he had to take out the head of the pancreas. It was really a journey to come back just from that. The surgery was an immense amount of hours. I think it was like close to 9 hours. Recovery time was like over, in post-op was 6 hours. There were immense amount of things that happened during that time, but to say the least, I was touch and go. I had a breathing tube and many other things to deal with, and for 72 hours I was in a complete different place. I will tell you, it was an absolute beautiful place, and at that moment is really where my faith was tested. Prior to going in for the Whipple surgery, can you just imagine someone that's always been very athletic and having this diagnosis was an incredible blow to my mind. My late husband at the time, and family members, church members, and friends all around the country. How could this be? Why would this actually happen to me? I really had a lot of questions, and so did everyone else. But let me tell you what I did have. I had a lot of prayers. A lot of people from around the world praying just for me to heal. And I can tell you, prayer is powerful in many ways. So during my time that was actually at the hospital, I was there for close to 2.5 weeks. 72 hours I made a decision. I wanted to take myself off of all medications. My doctors were totally against that, but I knew, due to the power of prayer, that God could heal me. I know He can, if it's His will, not my will, if it's definitely His will. So that's what I went with. And I do remember getting off of all those drugs and looking at the clock and seeing family members and my pastors coming in. In fact, only my pastors were allowed to come in at the moment to pray over me. I was not allowed to have any visitors for quite some time. So 72 hours goes by, and I am just looking at the clock, watching the minute hand, and pretty much the hour just going by here and there, and just trying to breathe. It was painful, it was hurtful, but I just felt God's presence during that time. So every day was a challenge. Every day was a challenge to get out of bed, and I had my typical food, I call it, through intravenously, I call them Tagalong. And Tagalong was where I was hooked up to, obviously, like, just very mild drugs to get up, and also I was hooked up for fluids going through my body. At this moment, I could not eat nor drink while I was in the hospital. 3 days after the Whipple surgery, the tail of my pancreas leaked. With that indication came something called TPN, which meant I was not able to drink nor eat for 40 days. And that certainly just resonated with me, thinking about being in the desert for 40 days. How ironic, it's 40 days. So at that point, I had a decision to make. I either fight my way back, or I just let myself go. And I could have actually let myself go. But that's not what my family would have wanted, nor many other people. And if God wanted me to go home at that moment, I was okay with that. But I didn't feel that, because I felt that there was a bigger purpose behind this trial, behind this entire testimony. And that's why I'm talking with you today. So after 2.5 weeks in the hospital and meeting so many different people, and let me tell you, I never slept, because it was a teaching hospital. So I had a lot of medical students coming in, and I did agree to use the lymph nodes where the cancer was actually found as trials and trial studies with the university. So they were poking me every few hours, and why bother trying to sleep? And I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink. So I roamed the halls, and I met a lot of people, and some incredible people, and just shared my testimony about God and just surviving this at the time. It was time to go home. My late husband would come in all hours of the evening. My pastors would come in all hours, and I just could not wait to go home. So I went home, and I had a nurse, in-house nurse, that would be coming in for quite some time, months and months and months. And I was put on TPN. Luckily, I did not need chemo at the time. The TPN, with having so much removed, was my living food, which was fed through me intravenously through my heart. Every night my husband would have to hook me up at 6 p.m. and unhook me at 8 a.m. Our dining room table looked like a pharmacy, to say the least. But that's what I had to do. So I had a suitcase full of TPM that would be delivered at least once a week. My husband would put it in the refrigerator, and then he would actually put different nutrients and different vitamins within the TPN to get it ready to be fed to me through intravenously every day, every evening. So that went on for quite some time, 6 weeks in fact. It was 5 weeks. I had 1 week to go. I started at 110 pounds, and I will tell you, I went down to 92 pounds, very frail. I knew, my doctors told me, you probably will lose about 15 pounds, 12, 15 pounds, and they were exactly right. And let me tell you, I don't think I ever looked at food the way I did after that. My bag of TPN, that was my food, and I could not wait to get that bag. I couldn't wait to get hooked up at 6 p.m. 5 weeks into recovery, into healing. I had 1 week to go. I heard a thump. My husband, late husband, and I had a routine. He would go and get a shower every night at 6 p.m. The doorbell rang, and I knew it was my food. My last week of being on food, I had to make a choice. I had to either crawl up the steps or answer the door. I decided to answer the door. And I got my food. And I actually put it in the refrigerator. My husband did not come downstairs. It was like 6:15. We had a schedule every night, 6 p.m. So I decided I better go up and just check on him, make sure he's okay. So I crawled up the steps because I couldn't walk quite yet. And I was extremely weak. When I got to the top of the steps, I went into the master bathroom. My husband usually would take a shower before he would come down and hook me up. That whole process took about an hour. I opened the door within the master bathroom, and it was dark, and I stepped in a puddle of water. At that point, I put the light on, and I went to check on him. And the shower was running, and he was in the shower with his head all the way behind. I knew he was gone. He had a massive heart attack and actually drowned in the shower. That did not stop me from trying CPR and calling 911. My instincts literally just took over. When I called 911, they were there within, I am not kidding, I'm going to say 3 minutes. As soon as they got there, I was still doing CPR, and then I was led into one of the bedrooms, and that's when, the second part of this whole journey and tragedy begun. I had obviously many neighbors and friends, and I don't remember a lot at that point. I just remember that I just lost my husband, and I have a week to go to continue to be on TPN. And all I kept thinking about, not only was I frail, I was numb, but who was going to feed me? Somebody needed to feed me. It was now like 7 p.m. and I needed my food. So I'll fast forward. A lot happened at that point. I was very blessed to have 2 nurses, one that was my neighbor right beside me to the right, and one right behind me. 2 nurses. What are the odds of that? I came over and finally got my TPN hooked up, and I think it was about 10 p.m. Along with many people coming in. My doctors came. I think took something to help me sleep that evening, my family. My daughter and her husband moved in at that point, and my grandson, they were not going to leave my side. My son came in and his family from Roanoke, and they were not going to leave my side for weeks and weeks thereafter. So I had a community of people to help me with my healing. I do believe my healing had started after surgery, but then my healing had to rewind and start again after the death of my late husband, and just be in mourning for quite some time. But I did it, and that's why I want to share my story with you and this message. Not for you to feel sorry for me, but I hope and pray I can inspire anybody out there that needs inspiration, that needs hope, that needs encouragement through any trial they're going through. I also had an opportunity to be a best-selling author in Rebel Rising, to share my story. There's a lot more of my story in this book, but I feel so blessed that I am part of God's community. He did put me through a trial, and I'll have more, I'm sure. But look at that sign. I did it. And I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to fight the good fight. So I wanted to give you my story. Sorry, I don't mean to be so emotional. It's still kind of hard to talk about. But don't ever give up. Don't ever give up on your journey. Don't ever give up on your faith, on what God has planned for you, even though it's probably one of the hardest and toughest things you'll ever have to go through. I wanted to let you know about Heart of His Soul. You can find us on Facebook. We are actually starting to offer, we're offering seminars, conferences, starting October 27th at 8 a.m. You can go to the Facebook page of Heart of His Soul. And I pray that I'm on a mission, and I'm on God's mission, to really give people that hope and encouragement of how to endure a trial, so you will have a testimony that you can pass along to someone else. And that's it. That's a wrap, guys. But I'm a legend. I'm a champion. You can do it.
Come on, D! Let's go!